The sea is iron grey. Rain squalls slash the horizon. At mast height, American and Australian attack planes skim the whitecaps. Gunports flashing. A Japanese transport heaves in the swell, on its bridge. The captain has seconds, barely the length of a held breath, before a dark object skips off the wavetops toward his hull. The era of skip bombing has arrived, and the convoy steaming from Rabaul to Lae is about to disappear from the map. The date is the 2nd to the 4th of March 1943. The place, the Bismarck Sea. The stakes. New Guinea is the hinge of the Southwest Pacific. The Japanese hold Rabaul, their forward bastion. Lae is a stepping stone to Port Moresby and beyond. To stabilize the front, Japan organizes Operation 81, a troop convoy from Rabaul to Lae, carrying roughly 7,000 soldiers, fuel, and supplies. If those men reach Lae intact, Allied ground forces will face a new crisis. If they don't, Lae will wither, and the door to the Huon Gulf may swing open. The convoy moves. In early March, 8 transports and 8 destroyers form up under heavy weather. The escorts, names like Shirayuki, Asashio, Arashio, Tokatsukaze, Shikanami, Yukikaze, Uranami, Asagumo, are veteran blades. Their mission, deliver the transports, protect them against submarines and aircraft, and if necessary, rescue the embarked troops by the thousands. Allied reconnaissance spots 16 ships nosing along the New Britain coast toward the Huon Peninsula. The alarm flashes across the Allied air grid from Port Moresby to Milne Bay. The Allied plan. Air power, RAF and USAAF 5th Air Force, will be the instrument and the anvil. Medium-altitude B-17 flying fortresses will shake the convoy into disorder. Low-level strafers and skip bombers, B-25 Mitchells and A-20 Bostons, Havocs, will shred the ships once their formation breaks. P-38 Lightnings will sweep the Zeros off the convoy's back. Simultaneous strikes on Lae airfields will thin fighter cover and split Japanese attention. It's not just new aircraft, it's a new choreography. Mast-height attacks and skip bombing perfected in theater to solve the age-old problem of hitting a moving ship from the air. Opening blows, the 2nd of March. At dawn on the 2nd of March, 6 RAF A-20 Bostons rake Lae to suppress fighter response. By late morning, B-17s find the convoy and begin methodical medium-altitude runs. At least one transport, Kyokusei Maru, goes down, others are damaged. Japanese fighters tangle with the fortresses as P-38s race to the fray. Destroyers Yukikaze and Asagumo peel off at high speed, lift hundreds of survivors, and sprint to Lae to disembark them, thinning the escort screen around the remaining transports just as the weather breaks. That night, Catalina flying boats shadow the convoy like patient wolves. On paper, the Japanese schedule still looks achievable. In the morning, Allied attack groups will prove otherwise. The trap, the 3rd of March. The weather clears beyond Cape Ward Hunt. B-17s arrive first, bombing from around 7,000 feet. They scatter the convoy. The neat, boxy formation dissolves into a ragged zigzag of ships. Scattered ships mean scattered anti-aircraft arcs, and scattered arcs mean open doors for the killers coming in low. Beaufighters slash in on the deck to strafe and suppress AAA. The low-level B-25 and A-20 elements arrive to deliver the coup de grace. This is skip bombing in practice. Approach at mast height. Unleash a 500 or 1,000 pounds bomb at high speed so it ricochets off the water like a flat stone and detonates against the hull seconds later. Against ships turning hard and spewing fire, the technique trades altitude for geometry, speed, angle, and very little time to react. The Japanese captains face mere seconds from sighting to impact. Some Allied crews later measure their attack window in the space of a single breath. Fire on the sea. The afternoon becomes a furnace. B-25 strafers, many modified gunships bristling with forward .50 caliber, hose bridges and flak positions. Pinning gunners just long enough for a bomb to skip home. Destroyers Shirayuki and Tokatsukaze are fatally hit. Arashio is struck and collides with Nojima. Transports take hit after hit until their decks are a writhing tangle of flames. Troops and cargo. By evening, most transports are burning or sinking. The surviving destroyers begin the grim work of rescue, pulling thousands from oily water while under intermittent attack. That night, U.S. Navy PT boats thrust into the darkness. In the small hours near Lae, PT-143 and PT-150 find the crippled Oigawa Maru and send her under. Dawn of the 4th of March brings another blow. AB-17 drops a 500-pound bomb on destroyer Asashio as she rescues survivors. She sinks where she labored to save others. Of the convoy, only 4 destroyers claw back to Rabaul, and only Yukikaze escapes without damage. The tally. When the smoke thins, the arithmetic is brutal. 8 transports and 4 destroyers are sunk. Japanese personnel losses number in the thousands, commonly cited around 3,000 dead. with roughly 1.200 of the intended reinforcements making lay and about 2.700 survivors hauled back to Rabaul. Allied losses: 6 aircraft total, variously tallied, and 13 aircrew killed, including accidents. The victory is overwhelming. Even contemporary Allied communiques overclaim the tonnage, but the strategic effect is undisputed. Why it worked: intelligence and recon, shadowing by long-range patrol, e.g. Catalinas, timely contact reports, and a command system able to mass aircraft as weather opened. Coordination, staggered altitudes and rolls, B-17s to disperse, Beaufighters to strip AAA, and B-25, A-20 skip bombers to kill. Innovation in theater, the mast-height and skip bombing method, taught, practiced, and refined in the Southwest Pacific, converted medium bombers into ship killers. Airfield suppression, strikes on lay-limited fighter intervention at the moment of decision. The result: a combined arms air attack that collapsed the convoy's defenses and annihilated it in hours. Aftermath and strategic shock. The Japanese do the sober math: no more daylight. Surface troop convoys to lay. The battle forces a change of logistics: barges, night movement, and small craft, slower, less efficient, more vulnerable to attrition. For the Allies, the lesson is electrifying: air power, properly coordinated, can interdict the sea in depth, not with a single miracle weapon, but with tactics, training, and timing. In the Southwest Pacific, the balance shifts. Myths, claims, and the historical record. Contemporary communiques trump at fantastic numbers: 22 ships, 15,000 men, echoed by newsreels and posters. Later analysis trims the claims to the 8 transports and 4 destroyers we recognize today. The fog of war, the heat of propaganda, and the chaos of multi-axis attacks made precise counting hard in the moment. Yet even the sober ledger leaves no doubt: in 3 days, a convoy meant to reinforce Leh was reduced to wreckage and rafts. Human courage. For aircrews, mast-height meant crossing Tracer at 220 to 260 knots, barely a few wingspans above the sea. For sailors, it meant fighting fires with burned hands, cutting rafts free as decks canted, and hauling strangers from the water under strafing runs. Thousands perished, thousands more were dragged from the sea by destroyers equally battered. The battle's mechanics are clinical, its human texture is anything but. The last image. On the 4th of March, with oil slicks spreading and splintered rafts drifting, the last Allied attacks fade. The Bismarck Sea is strangely quiet. The lesson remains: in 1943, the Allies discovered how to turn sea lanes into killing grounds without a fleet in sight, with timing, technique, and nerve. The result reverberated across New Guinea and into the future of maritime air power. Training the killers at mast height, how skip bombing was taught. Before Bismarck Sea, the 5th Air Force had already run a harsh classroom in the skies of New Guinea. Crews learned that low altitude was not theater, it was math. Speed, drop distance, fuse setting, and approach angle were drilled until they felt like muscle memory, in converted B-25s with extra forward .50 cals. Pilots practiced straight-in runs that shaved the wave tops, then kicked the bomb free at a distance short enough to see the paint on a ship's hull. The idea was simple: if medium-altitude bombs missed too often, change the geometry, make the water your friend and the ricochet your aim guide. Gunners were taught to sweep bridges and flak emplacements 1 second before release, buying the pilot a breathing space thinner than a postcard. It was terrifying and it worked. Beaufighters, the scalpel before the hammer. RAF Beaufighters acted like surgeons opening the patient. They hit first to strip away the convoy's reflexes, flak directors, bridge signalmen, anyone who could swing a barrel, point a director, or hold a radio. Their 420mm cannon wrote white slashes across destroyer decks and transport wheelhouses. Only then did the hammer, the B-25, A-20 skip bombers, fall. When it worked, the ship's anti-aircraft rhythm was offbeat, its eyes ringing from strafing. Against that confusion, even a single well-timed skip could split open the side like an axe into wet timber. Weather, chance, and the window of decision. New Guinea weather gives and takes. On the 3rd of March, squalls parted like theatre curtains at the exact hour Allied strike packages reached Cape Ward Hunt. The B-17s found a broken ceiling. The low-level groups found lanes of clear air hugging the sea. That window, minutes, not hours, decided the battle. Had the squalls closed earlier, the convoy might have slipped through to lay under the day's grey tent. War is decision compressed in time. Here, the atmosphere itself turned decision into opportunity. Japanese bridges, voices on the intercom. On Japanese bridges, the order books were neat and the voices steady, but the timelines were unforgiving. A lookout shouts, aircraft. Low, the helmsman throws the wheel. Gunners snap to their sights. At mast height, the attacking plane is already in the last seconds of the problem. By the time a director calls a solution, the Beaufighters fire scythes through the bridge canvas, and the B-25 behind it drops a black egg that kisses the wave and leaps, 1, 2, into the flank. The crew's training was rigid and brave, the geometry was merciless. Ships and fates, a partial roll call. Convoys have biographies. Shirayuki, White Snow namesake, died in fire and steam. Tokatsukaze staggered, then failed. Arashio, struck and blind, lurched into Nojima in a metal groan. Asashio died a rescuer's death. Bombed while lifting men out of oil. Transports, Kyokusei Maru, Oigawa Maru, Nojima, went to the bottom carrying fragments of regiments. In a ledger, they are tonnage. In the water, they were lifeboats jammed with men who, an hour earlier, stacked rifles in neat pyramids on quiet decks. PT boats in the ink-black night. Small craft hunted in the seams of darkness. PT-143 and PT-150. Plywood greyhounds, felt for the crippled Oigawa Maru near Leh. The sea smelled of cordite and fuel. The night was a soar of distant traces. When their torpedoes ran true, it wasn't triumph so much as a grim punctuation mark at the end of a day spent cutting. PT crews fought the elements as much as the enemy. Spray. Engine fumes. The constant risk of being seen a heartbeat too early by a destroyer's searchlight. Counting the cost, claims, corrections, and memory. War reportage is written in smoke. In the first hours, counts are guesses with uniforms. Over days and years, historians reduce the fog. Which hulls? Which dates? Which men? The Bismarck Sea numbers settled into a shape we can trust. But memory kept older silhouettes alive. Posters, newsreels, boasts on both sides. The sober tally did not need the exaggeration. The catastrophe was already plain. What changed after? Logistics rewritten. After the convoy's drowning, Japan's calculus shifted. Big troop convoys along that coast in daylight were over. Barges crept by night. Flights tried to fill gaps that ships once owned. For the Allies, the battle validated a playbook. Tie down enemy fighters at their airfields. Break formation with heavies. Suppress with cannon. Kill at mast height. It would echo in later interdictions from New Guinea's north coast to the Bismarck archipelago, and in the way air power thought about the sea for decades. Anatomy of a single attack run. Setup, formation of 4 to 6 at 50 to 150 feet. 220 to 260 knots. IP to run in, line up across the bow quarter, Beaufighters lead to rake decks. Suppression, 1 second. 0.50 cal sweep across bridge, RR tubs. Release, 500 to 1.000 pounds bomb skips once or twice, nose fuses set to detonate on contact. Egress, break low and away, crossing the stern to avoid the blast and convergence fire. Assessment, if the ship still has bite, the next element repeats, if not, mark for PT boats by night. Grounded in humanity, 2 vignettes. Pilot, 5th Air Force, he remembers the smell, hot electrics and wet canvas. On the run in he sees sailors, not silhouettes, he squeezes the trigger anyway, because that was the bargain they all made. Later, over the mountains home, the ocean smell leaves the cockpit and the jungle smell takes its place. He is 22. Destroyer seaman, IJN, he keeps cutting rope. Men shout his name and others he will never learn. A tracer snaps past his cheek like a thrown wire. He does not look up. When the deck lurches, he feels his knife in his palm as if it were the only true thing left in the world. Why this story resonates. A clear problem solved by innovation. Missing at medium altitude, solved by a new geometry. Joint sequencing. Heavy right pointing arrow suppress right pointing arrow low level kill. Clean narrative beats for viewers. Numbers with texture, minutes, feet, knots, anchor memory. Moral weight. Efficiency and terror coexist. We can respect skill without glorifying death. Oil on water, mountains in cloud. At noon on the 4th of March, a white line of surf writes itself along New Guinea's emerald edge. Beyond it, oil spreads into slow rainbows. Above, a patrol arcs home, sunlight blinking off aluminum. The mountains hold their clouds like old men holding their breath. The convoy is gone. The sea keeps its secrets. The history keeps the lesson. Order of battle. Who flew? Who fought? Allied Air, USAAF 5th Air Force, B-17. B-25, P-38, RAF, Beaufighter, A-20, Boston, RAF, USN Catalinas. Surface, US Navy PT boats for night strikes. Japanese convoy, 8 transports, 8 destroyers escorting reinforcements to Leh. Crews were mixed, veterans from earlier Solomons and New Guinea runs. Plus fresh drafts. The convoy commander had to balance speed, weather cover, and the permanent threat of Allied reconnaissance. Narrative beat. Put a clean OOB graphic on screen for 12 seconds. Flags. Silhouettes. Ship, aircraft labels. Then push into the kill chain, arrows. Recon right pointing arrow, heavies right pointing arrow, strafers right pointing arrow, skip bombers right pointing arrow, PT at night. Aircraft profiles. What each type brought. B-17. Altitude stability. Broke formations and forced evasive turns that exposed ships. B-25. Strafer, skip, mods. Forward, 50s to blind decks. Low alt speed to place the ricochet. A-20, Boston, fast. Nimble at wave top. Ideal for suppression and skip bombing on smaller hulls. Beaufighter, the can opener. 20mm cannon to silence RR and tear bridges. P-38, long legs and climb. Pounced on cap and interceptors orbiting lay. Catalina, patience on wings, shadowing and vectoring attacks. PT boats. Finishers in darkness. Torpedoes for cripples trying to limp into lay. Skip bombing math. Geometry in 6 lines. Altitude, 50 to 150 feet keeps sight picture steady. Too low risk spray and porpoising. Speed, 220 to 260 knots maximizes flat skip. Slower equals short hop. Faster equals overshoot. Release range, approximately 300 to 600 yards, far enough for 1 or 2 skips. Close enough to beat helm corrections. Fuse, nose, instant to detonate on contact after ricochet. Angle, quartering bow gives larger target plane and avoids head-on flak convergence. Suppression timing, 1 second. 0.50 cal sweep just before release. Inside AB-25 cockpit, sensory script for VO. The interphone is a swarm of clipped voices. Cordite bites the back of the throat. The altimeter barely moves. The horizon is a knife. And the ship's bow grows until it fills the windscreen like a black wedge. Guns, now. The bridge flashes with white sparks. The pilot feels the release more than hears it, an upward sigh in the fuselage. The bomb skips once, flat and fast, then the ocean explodes into orange. The Mitchell rolls low across the stern. The tail gunner reading traces like hail on a tin roof. Japanese damage control, courage under heat. Destroyers drilled hard on counter-flooding, firefighting, and towing, but skip hits near engine rooms and cargo hatches made clean evolutions impossible. Oil fires spread like night, ammunition lockers cooked off, decks became wire-snarled obstacle courses. Damage control parties ran hoses under strafing, chopping jammed doors with axes. The doctrine was sound, the tempo was lethal. Map beat, the killing lanes. Show a 3-phase map. Phase 1. Rabaul sortie and coastal hugging. Phase 2. Contact near Cape Ward hunt and B-17 scatter attacks. Phase 3. Low-level lanes parallel to the convoy. With Beaufighter, X, marks on RR hotspots. Then B-25, skip arcs, into transports. Keep labels minimal, animate wakes. Tracer belts, and a thin weather front pulling back like curtains. Making the sea speak. Lay a distant surf and a low diesel thrum under the VO. For attacks, bring in canopy wind, a dry .50 cal chatter. Then the wet slap of a skip. Keep explosions base light at first, audience fatigue, and save 1 full spectrum detonation for the mid-sequence climax. In the rescue scenes, pull the music, let coughing, splashes, and shouted names carry the weight. Ethics on the water, skill without glee. The episode can model a tone that respects courage on both sides without celebrating destruction. Explain innovation and training, avoid triumphant language over loss of life. War is a forge and a ruin, your channel's strength is showing how ideas, not just objects, changed outcomes. Command temperatures, decisions at the top. Headquarters lived by weather maps and telegrams. The order that mattered most was not attack, but mass reconnaissance, mass timing, mass courage at the point where cloud broke and sea lanes narrowed. Staff work turned airplanes into a single hand, closing into a fist for only an hour. After that, the sky would scatter again. Good command is not shouting, it is arranging a meeting between skill and chance. The convoy's clock, why hours ruled lives. Convoys run on clocks, tide windows out of Rabaul, refueling slops, dawn and dusk fighter cover, moonrise and set. In March, 43, the convoy's clock collided with the Allies' window of clear air. For the men aboard, time collapsed into seconds, helm orders, range calls, fuse settings. Battles are calendars that end in heartbeats. The waterline, where steel meets sea. Skip bombs aim not for elegance but for the waterline, the seam of a ship's life. A perfect hit chews into plates just above the sea, where pumps cannot keep up and fires drink the oxygen from below. on transports stacked with troops and drums. The waterline is the hinge of fate. Once it breaks, the ship becomes a sentence with no verb left. Airfield silence, the lay suppression picture. Cut to lay, revetments, pierced steel planking, mechanics wiping rain off canopies. Strafing is not dramatic up close, it is sordid and efficient, fuel drums perforated. Radios shredded, a runway unusable for an hour. That hour does not make headlines, but it opens the sea for the main act. The survivors' rafts, what the sea keeps. After the furnace, there are always rafts. Men braid rope with numb fingers, share canteens, argue about currents, whisper names. Some rafts drift toward shore and capture, others into the blue silence. Navies count ships, oceans count stories. The Beaufighters walk around, hardware as character. Give the aircraft a human profile, oil streaks like laugh lines. 20mm barrels as clenched teeth. The squat stance of a boxer. A quick walk-around shot teaches the audience to see machines as intentions made metal. The Beaufighter is not beautiful, but confidence looks like this. The Mitchell's nose, aiming without romance. In the B-25's nose, romance dies fast. The Bombardier has seconds to judge sparkle on water, angle of bow, and the ugly math of speed. He does not think in words, he rides a sensation, now. When the bomb clears and the nose rises, he is already scanning the next target. War teaches you to end sentences early. Destroyer names, poetry in steel. Say the names aloud, Shirayuki, Asashio, Tokatsukaze, Yukikaze. They are poems welded to hulls. In March, 43, poetry met physics. Some names would survive into other seas, others would end here. Their syllables bubbling through oil and rain. What the battle teaches beyond 1943. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea is not only a story of ships and planes, it is a parable about sequence. Intelligence without timing is noise, courage without method is waste. When skill meets a minute of clear sky, history moves, the sea forgets quickly. We remember so that the next generation knows what to do when the clouds open.